Hi, Kurt.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good.
You hear me okay?
Yeah,
Somebody's got feedback.
Yeah.
Bruce, did you get Miss Haynes' email?
yes.
Okay.
Stop video. Audio mute. Audio submit mute.
When did she ever look like that?
And Bruce, it's 7 o'clock and we do have a quorum. Still waiting for Evan to join, but we can go ahead and get started if you'd like.
Oh, Lewis is here. Lewis is here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just joined in.
Sure.
Be with me just a sec, just writing down the last name. Okay, it is 7 p.m. and I'll do the roll call. Director Scheibels,
Present.
Director Barclay,
Present.
Director Kennedy,
Present.
Director Young.
Present.
Outstanding. Yes, sir. You do have a quorum. We did get an email earlier today from Ms. Haynes saying that she had another appointment. She would not be available for tonight. And before we move on with regular business, just need a decision from the board if it's going to be an excused absence or unexcused absence. Just need a motion and a second.
She said that she ends up she has a conflict related to her duties as a elected member of the Electoral College. So I move that it's an excused absent.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone that's opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Bruce, did you want me to drive?
Yes.
All right. Next is qualifications. Everything has been filed with the state, Secretary of State. Are there any new disclosures of conflict to announce before we get started from the directors? All right, thank you very much. Next item is to review and approve the agenda. That was part of your board packet. And Bruce, I know you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, we actually have, I think, two things. And I don't know, Evan can help us on this because I see Evan is here.
Yes, sir.
We have an additional resolution. I don't know if that would go under new business or if that would be after we come out of executive session, go in those resolutions that has to do with the resolution adding the CCR and design review authority to the service plan since the 45-day public notice period passed without challenge. Whether that should go into new business or should that wait until after executive session?
Yeah, Bruce, I recommend it either goes into unfinished business or new business. That's where I would put it.
Okay, why don't we just add it as, I guess it would be, I don't know, 9A. Because we rather, yeah, no, let's make it new business and just make it its own standalone item under new business.
Okay. Will do.
And that would be the resolution. And then under, I guess it would be director's item, or I guess it would be has to do with the board vacancy issue with regard to Director Young. And I guess I put that under item 6 after public comment.
All right, sir. I'll do that. So then just need a motion to amend the agenda to include the two items that we just discussed.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to accepting the amended agenda? Thank you very much. Next item is the consent agenda. There's two items on the consent agenda tonight. First one is the approval from your minutes of your regular meeting from June 11th. And the second one is to approve the minutes from the special meeting from July 24th, both of which were in your board packet.
So we're taking out item C. That was
Yes, sir.
listed on the agenda.
Since Alyssa's going to be going over those later, I thought I removed that, but I see it's still showing up on the agenda.
Okay. I move approval of the consent agenda A and B.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone opposed to approving the consent agenda as presented? Thank you very much. Next item is correspondence. The only piece of correspondence that I have is we did receive a letter of resignation from Director Young, and that letter of resignation is effective on October 4th. Other than that, we haven't received anything else at the office here for the district. Do any of the directors have anything they wish to share?
Kurt, this is Evan, and if you look at that letter, it says it's actually effective October 1st.
Okay,
And actually, it's effective immediately. So I can do that under director items.
Yeah, we can have that discussion at that point.
Okay.
Correct.
any other correspondence?
I've had none.
All right, so we'll move to public comment then. So the board and district staff truly value the public's input. This is your time to address the board regarding district business. I would ask if it's an agenda item that you hold your comments until we hit that section. But it's your time to address the board, and please restrict your comments to a total of 3 minutes. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the board? I just ask you to raise your hand via Zoom, and then we can call on you. Any public comment? Seeing no raised hands and hearing none, we can move on.
Okay. I'm gonna add something. Kelvin Klink here.
Mr. Klink, go right ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank the boards and or the Joint Landscape Committee for getting the dead trees cut down throughout the district. I think it looks much nicer now. And I personally appreciate it because my blood pressure doesn't go up every time I drive past a dead tree. So it's been very, very beneficial for me. The next thing is continuing to see the First Creek Interceptor Pipeline project not getting the lands that they've torn up restored back to the condition that they were before their project started. And I'm hoping that I know that it's probably something that's supposed to be taken care of by Town Center, or we just wait for them I don't know. It's just a frustrating thing, and I'm hoping that they're going to put our district back in condition that it was before. And maybe it's going to take some leverage from the boards to make sure Aurora comes through on making that happen. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, we can move to director's items.
Kurt, I had one thing on the minutes, and I think it was of the last meeting, where the chat of the meeting was transcribed into the minutes. And in particular, on page 19, that is on the pagination of the report, there's some stray comments at the top of page 19. That's the only thing that's on page 19. And it looks like those should be on with the rest of the comments from the chat on page 13, I think it is.
Okay, I will go ahead and make sure that that's corrected.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other director items? If not, Bruce, this is the time to talk about Director Young's resignation, or Director Young, if you'd like to address the board.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what to
so-
say. I'm moving. So as a result of our move and the sale of the house, I'm no longer eligible effective October 1st to be on the board.
So I sent, so we have a provision in our bylaws that Cynthia, after Leslie's letter was shared with the board, and it's section 6 of Article 4. And it said, the board shall accept with immediate effect any board member's resignation without regard to any express future effective date of such resignation. And I looked at the way Leslie had written her letter, and she says, I shall resign as a member of the board of directors effective October 1st. And so I looked at that and I sent the letter to Evan. And I basically was looking at that. She didn't say she's resigning now, but making it effective October 1st. She's basically saying she's eligible to be a board member, and she is, because she is a resident of the district, and she's still an elector or a registered voter in Denver until she moves out of the district. And Evan has provided me a message today saying he felt that she was still eligible to be a member of the board and could participate in tonight's meeting. And so that's where we stand. And I guess I should let Evan, chime in at this point.
Well,
I have a comment also. Go ahead, Evan.
I mean, I'll just say that I was basing my opinion on the quoted bylaw language that I saw in Cynthia's email. But when Bruce just read the language, it was slightly different. So I do not have a copy of the bylaws in front of me, and
Okay,
I've lost my connection here, so I need to find that language. Maybe Bruce, did you read that verbatim? Read that again, please.
It says, in accordance with CRS 32-1-905, quote unquote vacancies, the board shall accept with immediate effect any board member's resignation without regard to any express future effective date of such resignation, period. All resignations are effective immediately upon receipt by the board or manager of a written or verbal communication emailed to the board to document, and are irrevocable, period. And so her and I admit I was putting my lawyer hat on. It said her letter, if you read her full letter, and I don't know if I can share, Kurt, can I share documents, or are you the only one who can share?
I can share it if you'd like, sir.
Well, so I looked at that and I said, her letter says, pursuant to the requirements of the Ebert board, says, I shall resign as a member of the board of directors for the EMD effective October 1st, 2004. It doesn't say I am resigning. And so that's why I looked at that as she wasn't resigning as of now. She didn't say, I am resigning now, but want it to be effective October 1st. She says, I shall resign October 1st. So that's why I was saying she hadn't made the affirmative decision to resign until October 1st. And that's why I was language. But I'll Evan, you're the attorney. I'm an attorney, but I'm not the board's attorney. So that's how I was looking at it.
Well, that's true. And when you reread the language of the bylaws, it says without regard for an effective date, which is troublesome. I agree with you. Her letter clearly states that she shall resign on October 1st. I know it's just up to a vote of the board, really, how to accept it, I think. Certainly bylaws are changeable or interpretable by the board at any time, at any moment. So, it's really up to the board. If Cynthia wants to move, that'd be effective immediately. And that gets a second, and you want to have a vote on it, vote on it. But I certainly think the board has the leeway to interpret the bylaws and the letter in concert any way you want to.
Okay, so you're not approving the CRS section 32-1-905 that says if a person, this is C, if a person who was duly elected or appointed submits a written resignation to the board, you're done.
Well,
Doesn't have any date on it, doesn't have anything else. So my question is, if you're not going to, and the reason that the bylaws are written it that way, because several years ago, Sandy was president, she resigned, then she revoked her resignation so she could vote on something and then she re-resigned. So that's why when you submit the letter, that's where that intent was coming in the bylaws. But here's the statute. So what do we follow, or we don't follow anything, or we can make it up as we go? That's all I'm trying to get a clarification.
well,
So
like
our
I
bylaws
said,
should be rewritten if they're not understood in the way that they were intended.
the statute doesn't say anything about an effective date, so I think it's pretty clear her resignation letter said effective October 1st. So, but like I said, if the board wanted to strictly interpret that and say that she has resigned as of the date of receipt of the letter, you can do that. Or I think it's well within your powers to interpret October 1st as the effective date.
Okay, well, it also says director's office shall be deemed to be vacant upon the occurrence of any one of the following events prior to the expiration date of the term of office. So you can decipher it, I guess, the way that you want it, but
Well, right, I mean,
which to me is more clear. It's a statute. Just, it needs to be corrected one way or the other in our bylaws. If you turn in your resignation letter and you're not gonna resign for 5 months, what does that do? You need to change the language, Bruce, then to the bylaws, or whoever's handling the bylaws.
well, the board can do that at any time. I mean, on a majority of agreement. But I think the statute does not really speak to the effective date. And as far as being eligible, when it lists those criteria of when you are eligible to be a director, yes, had Leslie closed on her house in 2 days, well, then at that point, she becomes ineligible, and that would be the effective date. But it sounds like the closing will occur on October 4th.
No,
And so she makes her
no.
resignation effective as October 1st.
Her
No,
closing was August 28th.
But she has a lease back. She's still a resident of the district, Evan.
Oh, well, yeah, if she's still a resident and she's registered elector, then she's still eligible.
And she closes on her house, correct me if I'm wrong, Leslie, she closes on her new house September 28th.
Correct, September 27th. The only thing that occurred to me during this discussion was if you terminate a board member, I mean, I'm hoping to give you a little bit of a running start to get my position filled. If you go by the letter, which Cynthia, I feel is correct in bringing up with the bylaws, maybe we need to adjust the bylaws, because we could have 3 directors walking out one day with no running start as to having any possible potential vacancies filled. We need to allow that leeway, so a director would be inclined, hey, I know I'm going to be out of here in 2 months, but here's your running start. Here's your notification to get the word out and possibly get these positions filled.
And you mentioned that, Bruce, in our meeting in June, but we didn't, you just said there was going to be possible vacancies. So if anybody was interested, did you get any applications to do that? Is there any duly qualified? Have we done any of that? Or are we gonna wait now for the December meeting and then maybe after that?
Now, all I said in June was that there were 2
Possible.
directors who had their places for sale, and we may have vacancies coming up. And once that happened, we'd start the process of,
Okay.
publishing vacancies. No, nobody's come to me and said that they're interested. No.
Okay, I just was curious because you did put that out in June. We've had a few months on different things, so I wondered if anybody just even submitted anything. Hey, I'd like to, not officially, but they could still send a note.
Nope. Nobody has.
We have no willing applicants, duly qualified or otherwise, right? So I guess you can decide what you want to do. I'm not agreeing that it should be later, so I guess we need a vote.
I would move that, my position is that I would allow Leslie to participate tonight as a board member. And not accept her resignation as a resignation as of the date it was submitted based on what I think is an ambiguity in the wording of her letter.
Is there a second? Is there a second? The motion dies for lack of a second.
I do have a question. We didn't get to a discussion point because we didn't have a second. It does seem odd that this reference of Article 4 is so specific, and to not work with it in its specificity does seem like we're not being faithful to the Colorado revised statutes. The question I've got is, tonight's meeting, it seems like not such an issue, but we do have some things that are coming up in quick succession that we will need special meetings between now and December. If there's a special meeting in later September or in October before the effective resignation date, what does that mean? Does that mean Leslie is still?
No, Louis, what happens is, because my motion died for lack of a second,
Yeah.
then that means Leslie is no longer a member of the board because of the way our bylaws were written. What Evan was saying is the state statute, and I don't have a copy of the state statute in front of me, and right now I don't have access to Lexis to actually look at the language of the statute. But what Evan was saying is the statute doesn't have the language about we can't put an effective date. You can't have a resignation letter with an effective date. Apparently, the statute doesn't say that. So that would result. So what apparently when we did our and I remember the discussion when we were doing the bylaws, and they mentioned the thing with what Sandy Hittman did, and that's one reason we added this section 6 to our bylaws, and we added that language about you can't do a resignation letter for the Ebert board and say, I'm resigning today, but the effective date is, say, October 1st, because that's when I'm actually going to move out. I'm just giving you a heads up. So by lack of a second, that means when Leslie submitted her letter yesterday, that's when her resignation from the board was effective, which means because Khadijah is not here tonight, there's only 3 of us who will vote on everything the rest of tonight. And Leslie can't, Leslie can participate in the meeting as a member of the district, as a resident of the district, but she can't do any more. She can't vote. She can't be part of the executive session because my motion failed for lack of a second.
Okay.
And Bruce, I did call up the statute, and it has nothing to say about the effective date. All it talks about is that the Board of County Commissioners can appoint a vacant position within, if it hasn't been filled within 60 days.
Okay. So that means we just have to start our process to fill the board vacancy earlier than we were going to. And since we have the notice of board vacancy, we'll get that out there.
So I would ask for a motion then to accept Director Young's resignation and direct staff to post a notice of vacancy.
Yeah, I guess.
I would move that. Yes.
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? Thank you.
And I want to take this opportunity to thank Leslie for her work on the board. I know she worked, she did a number of drive-throughs recently, looking at the landscaping and participating in some of the issues that have been going on during the transition. So I appreciate that. And I apologize for the way this has ended, Leslie, because I'm not even sure you were aware of that. If you'd sent the letter 2 days from now, then this all wouldn't have happened.
No worries. I've enjoyed working with y'all, and I do have one thing that you might just make a list on. Having just closed on my house, the buyers and the sellers each got assessed that 1/2 transfer fee to Town Center Metropolitan District. I'm hoping that will get addressed and it just goes directly to Ebert, and Town Center is no longer a part of that transfer fee assessment.
It actually goes to Oakwood or whatchamacallit.
Oh, okay.
Whoever owns Oakwood, not to Town Center, but I know what you're talking about.
My settlement statement says Town Center Metropolitan District. So,
Oh, really?
I mean,
Oh, that's
that's
new.
a chunk of
I didn't realize
change. That's
that.
a chunk
Didn't
of
know
change.
that.
And we should probably address that, but I've got my closing statement there, which I'd be happy to share with anybody. But I think I'm going to check out then and go watch the debate.
Okay,
All right. Thanks
All
for your
right.
help,
Thank you,
Leslie.
Leslie.
Bye.
Bye.
Are there any other director items?
No, Kurt, thanks.
Okay, then we can move on to item number 7, and that's an update on the litigation. And Mr. Schmidt has joined us, and also he provided a report. And I can put that up on the screen if you'd like me to.
I think that would be good, please, since the public hasn't seen it.
Yes, sir.
Certainly a lot has happened since May, when the stay was initiated. Town Center has done a lot in regard to changing the way it manages the district. The district manager is spending more time within the district, managing the vendors as they should have been doing all along. And in addition, as you know, we've initiated an RFP for a district manager. So in terms of management, we're making huge changes. Next week, on Thursday morning, Town Center Board will be having another board meeting, special meeting. Among the items on the agenda will be a plan for the fencing, repair, and repainting. We have 3 bids in hand. We expect to have another bid before then. But we anticipate authorizing 2/3 to 3/4 of the amount of work that needs to be done, which would leave $75,000 or so worth for finishing in 2025, assuming it's put into the budget. So we believe that issue will be taken care of at that point. We will soon have a report from our special engineer about water and trees and what have you. We're already making a start in terms of expectations internally of how to address the tree problem going forward. It's primarily a better choice of species and a better methodology for planting, but we'll make that formal probably towards the end of the year. And we'll have to start working in on the budget, on how to replace trees, how many and where. When it comes to landscaping, based on the people that I've talked to and heard from within the district, We've made tremendous strides in making improvements. We've replaced sodding in a number of places. We've upgraded the landscaping contract considerably. There's a special crew to do nothing but weeding and trash removal. There are uh, landscape beds that are getting in the process of getting mulch. There's still a list outstanding that we, the landscape committee, have given the district manager to do. As far as small projects to get completed before the end of the year. But we've made tremendous strides, I believe, in the way the community appears. So it's just a matter of what the board decides to do in the 2025 budget as far as further improvements. We thought that the district manager would have a proposal in time for this meeting for doing another series of enhancements to some of the intersections, some of the landscaping, similar to the request that was approved a couple months ago, the $297,000 request. We thought we would have a follow-on one. Didn't make it in time for this meeting since we only had one bid in, and we put it out for at least 3 bids. But there's a list that the Joint Landscaping Committee has done for future improvements, whether it's done this year or early next year. So that's a summary of my report. If there's any questions, I'm open to that.
I have a question about this meeting, the initiate monthly staff meetings. How did you contact these people from the board to go on between, let's see, April, May, and June?
We've been working with Kadisha and Lewis primarily since Bruce is not available. And the last drive around, we didn't have anybody. And so I don't know how to answer the question, but Bruce, Kadisha, and Lewis were aware of the monthly meeting, the monthly drive arounds that we were doing.
Shouldn't that have been sent to all directors? I've never heard about this.
That's not my job to do.
So what is that, Bruce? How is that handled?
We had asked for people who were interested back at an earlier meeting, and those were the ones who had expressed interest. I hadn't heard you had been interested. If you'd like to be interested in being involved in the Joint Landscape Committee, I can provide you the link for the next meeting.
No, that's quite all right. I did enough, and all this has been taken care of for 4 years that I sat on it. It's all in the notes, so they're not doing anything particular. So it's good they're going around and they're seeing how that TCMD is now through litigation that has brought us to this point that at least they're doing something. So, like I said, these topics were all brought up, and Al Maury, I see he's on Landscape Committee. He can testify to that also. It's all in the notes from prior. So that's why I remember that, Bruce, I did not, but I didn't see any emails go out. So that's why I was just asking how they were contacted. So they in essence contacted you and you let them know there was a date coming up for the meeting? Lewis and Khadijah and Leslie has told me about it, but you contacted them like that there was a meeting on the April 10th and May 7th and June 11th.
Yeah, there was a link that had been sent out to those, because those folks had expressed interest in being part of it. Yes.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to join it because I'm working full time now. And it's
Right.
during weekdays.
Yeah, I remember that. I just was curious as to how they were being contacted. I forgot about the link, or I didn't hear about it or whatever. But yeah, I've done my work with the Landscape Committee. They're not doing anything special. I'm glad the TCMD is finally doing something. It's too bad we had to go to court to get this finished, but seems like we're accomplishing a lot. Bill's report's really good. And the district shows now. I'm not too sure about the stepping stones to the mailbox because they're uneven, but time will tell when it gets wet. That's all. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Schmidt from the board?
Al, did you want to add anything more in your new capacity as the chair of the Joint Landscape?
I don't think so, Bruce. I think Bruce covered, or Bill covered things pretty well. So no, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, we can move on to the next item then. At the end of the last meeting, there was some discussion about whether a transition negotiation committee had ever been designated. I did check back in the meeting minutes and there was no committee formed. And so that's why this is on the agenda, because Evan asked us to do that last month, just to close that loop. And so there are members that have been part of that negotiation committee. This is on the agenda just so you can formally appoint that negotiation committee.
I thought there had been some discussion that the legal committee, which was myself and Lewis, had basically been told, go ahead and be part of the transition committee, but apparently that had not happened either, Kurt.
It was, but it wasn't a formal appointment.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
I think, Bruce, that we did follow the right procedure to set up the litigation committee. But then at some point it morphed into this transition negotiation committee or whatever we want to call it. And that never really got fully talked about and designated, I didn't think. So I think it would be good for the board to ratify tonight all the actions of you and Lewis with Khadijah as an alternate, as acting on the board's behalf as a subcommittee involved in this transition discussion, consolidation discussion, et cetera.
Okay. And before, I just have I guess it'd be a point of order or a question. Going forward, at least while we're a 4-person board, can only one of us participate in these transition meetings going forward?
No.
And 2 of us still can participate
Yeah, the
without
driver
running afoul of
think so.
Cora?
No, I mean the Cora open meetings. It's really the open meetings record or statute. It just says that no more than 2 board members can participate in something without it becoming a meeting. It's not tied to a quorum. It's tied to 2 members of the board. So a quorum, you're right, has changed. If you have only 4 members of the board, then a quorum becomes 3. But as far as doing these extraneous, non-published meeting activities, the magic number is no more than 2. So that continues.
Okay, so two of us can still participate in these transition meetings going forward, even while we're waiting to fill the board vacancy.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
I have a question. So is it a subcommittee? Is it a committee? What is it? What's it
Well-
called besides the transition negotiations committee is written, but is it a committee or is it just a group? I don't understand the verbiage when you said subcommittee.
Well, I probably misspoke, Cynthia. I mean, it's a committee. It's a committee of
Okay.
the board.
Okay, that's all I need to know. It's a committee. So where's the charter? I didn't see it in the packet. According to our bylaws. Appendage C.
Yeah, I
Where's
don't
the
know that-
charter that tells us what we're gonna do before you do it?
Well, I mean, you can do a
As a
charter by
committee.
motion tonight if you want to. That's the whole point of doing this exercise.
Okay, so we're gonna be
Yeah,
able.
I don't know that our litigation committee had a charter. We just appointed a couple people to be on the litigation committee from the beginning to do the primary negotiation and work with Evan on the litigation.
So the litigation people were not a committee. Is that what you're saying? Was not a committee?
Well,
In
it was,
the right of the bylaws, that's all I'm trying to establish. So even if it says committee, it's not really a committee, according to our bylaws.
It's not a formal committee like the Financial Operations Committee, no.
Okay, so then it's just a couple of people talking about it.
It's just ratifying the acts of board members who have been working on the transition process.
So now it's a process, it's not a committee.
Sure.
I just want to get the language right, because if something goes wrong, we don't have any, way to go back or talk about it, or if these people that are handling it aren't there, where do you start? Because when you have a committee, you have a list of things that as the committee is supposed to follow. So if you don't have that list, then where do we go from here? Is it just random? I know that there's been a lot of conversation. I'm just trying to get a word that benefits Ebert and the bylaws accordingly going forward.
Cynthia, any board member can create or raise an issue during a board meeting if you think that the committee is improperly commissioned or is going astray of what the majority of the board wants them to do. I mean, you can entertain a motion if you want, or have a motion if you want something like that, if you want to say something like that. But I'm asking the board to consider doing a motion to ratify all the actions that have been taken and to authorize for future meetings 2 people with an alternate to continue these negotiations that have begun.
To me, that's still a committee.
Well,
Just
it is
like the
committee.
FOC, you have direct items that you take care of at the FOC. So I guess I don't know, we have to discuss it, I guess. And if we don't have appendix C and you're not familiar, it's not really easy to do that.
Well, I guess I would suggest that the transition
Negotiations.
the transition negotiations are basically authorized to engage in discussions with TCMD on behalf of the board to bring the board's positions to those discussions and bring the positions that come back. For example, the consolidation agreement that we're talking about tonight that Evan has put together and sent to them and gotten feedback from them. And that's basically similar to when we had the legal committee. We never went through and had a full, discussion. We basically, initially it was myself and Murray. We were authorized to work with Evan to put together the complaint that was filed. And then we were authorized to, eventually it was myself and Lewis came together and came up with the MOU that resulted in the stay. And we never had an overall, charter or whatever. We just had the authority to work with Evan to bring back recommendations to the board, and the board voted on, the final approval in that case. And that's,
Okay.
I think, all we're doing here with the transition committee. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what else we'd be doing with this.
So at any time, the purpose, the scope of work, and the deliverables are not measurable at this point, because we're not doing it, the outline of the committee as a charter.
Well, for example, one of the deliverables was the RFP process, which the transition group worked on, brought it together. We brought it to the transition committee, partly through the collaboration meetings that we had. And then we brought that to the transition committee. We brought that back to the board. We got the board's input. to some of the deliverables and that list of extra things that we want the RFP, the companies that are going to be submitting bids, on the deadline that's coming up on Friday. And so that was a deliverable that came out of that process. And the transition committee going forward will be looking at, what we want TCMD and Oakwood / Berkshire / I'm drawing a blank. What's the other?
Berkshire Hathaway, right, I
Yeah.
got it. Okay, so
What we
let's
want
just,
them to do before we're gonna accept that.
okay, so then I guess we shouldn't call it a committee. So we have to think of a different name so that
The
going
transition
forward,
negotiating team.
No, you could just call it a task force. That's because they've got a task that they need to do, and they report back to the board at each step along the way so that it doesn't get too far out of the board's view.
yeah, I think that's good because we do have that in the bylaws, so we need to change the name of it so we don't get confused in the future. That's all.
Okay.
So I
right.
So,
think,
formalization, but I like the task force. That was really good, Louis,
Okay.
and we probably can just go with that.
Okay.
I think typically when a board charters a committee, which is a subset of board members, you are when you do a charter, you are delegating some of the board's power to that committee and allowing them to act on the district's behalf because you've chartered them to do so. In this case, this is a task force that is putting in the time and effort to get to propose proposals for the entire board, but they cannot act on behalf of the board. They cannot approve anything until the full board hears about it and it gets a report of it and acts as a full board on whatever the matter is. So they're not chartered as a committee with delegated authority. They are merely a task force, as Louis put it.
Okay, so let's try to use that word and not use committee and get confused, and then somebody's got to write a charter, so this works out better. So
Okay.
you give a summary after you've gotten together as a group to the progress, just like Bill's report, you'll have something like that. Okay.
All right,
Okay,
that's good.
I move that we ratify the transition negotiation task force actions of myself, Louis, and Khadijah, because I haven't been able to attend all of the transition negotiation task force meetings to date. And designate myself, Louis, and/or Khadijah as the members of the board who will participate going forward in those meetings,
But not to exceed 2.
not to exceed 2 of us at any one time.
at one
Correct.
time, okay.
Is there a second?
I
Second,
second. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, is there anyone opposed to the motion?
No.
Thank you very much. Next is an update on the joint TCMD EMD district manager requests for proposal process.
I'll do my best to, just because it's very short. Bill can chime in if he thinks there's anything he needs to add. Because I don't know, actually Louis may know more about this because he participated in some of the ride-alongs. I think about 5 potential district manager companies asked to do ride-arounds in the district to see what they were looking at as far as physical plant and what they would be taking on. I know that at least 2 potential bidding companies submitted a list of clarifying questions before the deadline, and those questions were answered with input from both the TCMD board and I know myself. I don't know if Louis provided any input to the question component. I know that Evan and Lisa Meyer, TCMD's attorney, also put input into the question clarification process. That was all done by August 30th. I think the ride-arounds took place the week before, during that week right before August 30th. I think 5 companies asked for a ride-around. And we're hoping to have as many as 6 or 7 companies submit bids. And the deadline for bid submittals is 5 p.m. this coming Friday. And there are myself and Louis and Bill Schmidt and Joe Napots, Joe K from TCMD have put
And Steve.
together with the input of the EMD's Financial Operations Committee, have put together a Excel spreadsheet that will help us with our, sort of so we can do an apples to apples comparison of the bids after they're received. And our hope is to be able to whittle down the submittals by, I think it's early October. Is that right, Louis?
I'm looking at my calendar right now to see.
To get down to 2, 3, or 4 companies for interviews?
Let's see. I don't have that date clearly available to me, but yes, it's a date specific by which we have to make our first selections. And after the evaluation, the rubric that Bruce is referring to, we will have had the chance to evaluate them all against the same criteria. And those that have the best responses then go forward in the process. And at some point, we'll do interviews, face-to-face interviews, and then we'll bring that information to the board. And then the board will make the decision as to who we offer the contract to.
And we haven't decided whether we're going to have a joint board meeting for decision-making or whether we're going to have joint interviews or just the transition task force group for the interviews. That process is still in the works, right?
That's right. And the other thing that's important, we're sitting here on September 10th. The new district manager should be in place December 1st, because we need a handshake. We need a transition period between existing and future district manager, so that we don't have a falling off of a cliff in terms of information or access or transition.
And we also are anticipating, and I'll talk to Kurt, because we don't know if Kurt's going to put in his own bid for this bigger process. And we also we're looking at potentially Kurt being a transition manager, because one of the questions was whether our existing manager is going to stay on throughout 2025 as part of the whole transition process and the consolidation process. And that is something that was one of the questions that was passed along as well.
One other thing, just for the audience of this meeting, is that December 1st start date, that by its nature means that this new district manager will not be present or will not be hands-on for the building of the budget for 2025. And 2025's budget is going to be unique because it is the transition year. So they will essentially be given a budget that they're to manage to, and then in 2025, they will be the one building the budget for 2026. But that's where we're at now.
Okay, December 1st is a Sunday, so do we still stick with that date? Does it matter? I know what you're trying to get with, so we have a whole month. I'm just saying, is that the date that we should stick to, or should we go to the 2nd? I don't know business-wise.
We'll talk about that, because sometimes you want to cut off on a specific calendar end or beginning so that they can take over as far as paying the bills. You know, sometimes bills cut off at month's end and beginning of month. And if that's the case, we want them to be effective December 1st to take everything forward. But
Okay,
we'll talk about that.
That's a good
Understand.
point.
And then Friday is Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
I just want to clarify, that's when you're gonna have all the,
that's when all the bids are supposed to be received.
okay.
Right. It's the middle of 5 p.m.
All right.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. There's nothing else on that. We can move on to new business, and this is one of the items that was added by Bruce, and this is a resolution regarding the 45-day notice. Evan did provide a copy of that for the board packet. And I will put that up on the screen. Mr. Ayla.
Are you there, Evan?
Yes, I am, sorry. Yeah, so this, where did that go? Here we go. Let's get this back in front of us. So as most of you probably know, back in our meeting in June, the board authorized us to go ahead and publish what we call the 45-day notice of the district's intention to modify its service plan to allow covenant enforcement and architectural control. The covenants for the Ebert district clearly expect either Town Center or Ebert to do that function or those functions, the architectural control committee and as well as the covenant enforcement. And Town Center Metro District claims that they have modified their service plan years ago to allow this process. And we, Ebert has never done this, but just never had a need to do it because Town Center was performing that. But with the idea that Ebert would be taking on this function, we went through this is a statutory procedure, and you file this public notice of your intention to modify to allow these powers. And we send direct notice to the city and county of Denver, and also to the court. And any of those parties can raise an objection to this. Any person who sees it in the newspaper can also raise an objection. As it turns out, the 45-day notice passed, or the 45-day period passed as of August, I think it was 3rd or 4th, somewhere in that time frame. And so now we propose doing this, having the board adopt this resolution, which clearly says that you will that you have modified your service plan to include these services, and then we will file a notice with the court, which will essentially amend your service plan in the court record. So that's the next step. If you approve this resolution tonight, then as soon as tomorrow or the next day, we will file a notice which attaches this resolution to it with the court, and the court will have record then of this, the completion of this change. So are there any questions about it, or I mean, I'm happy to answer them.
And if there's no questions for Mr. Ayla, just need a motion then to approve if you choose to do that.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone opposed? Outstanding. Thank you very much. I'll send that around for signatures tomorrow morning, first thing. Next is to review the financial statements, and Alyssa is with us tonight. Alyssa, do you want me to share my screen, or do you want me to give you the ability to do that? How do you want to go through those?
I can share my screen. That works.
Okay.
Oh, it says sharing is not turned on. Maybe you.
I'm working on it right now.
There we go. Thank you. All right, so we did provide your July 31st financials in the packet for you guys. I don't have too much to point out unless you guys have any specific questions. Your budgets for most of your funds are chugging along as we pictured. So far, you guys have received about 100% of your property taxes. As far as your general fund, your expenses are pretty in line with your budget as well, except as we already know and have discussed, the election, this recall election, this 86,000, which won't increase for the rest of the year. And then there were just two items that I wanted to point out that we don't normally see or we haven't seen in a while on your financials. So this is your Conservation Trust Fund statement, your statement of income and revenues, where we capture your Conservation Trust Fund proceeds and then any transfers to Town Center in relation to these. So we did transfer about $10,000 to Town Center, and this is for some basketball court, the basketball court project. So those were transferred to Town Center with supporting invoices. So as we receive those invoices, it'll be exact amounts that are transferred there. These are eligible costs for your Conservation Trust Fund proceeds.
Alyssa, one thing to point out, that $9,862 was for design only. There's no actual construction involved at this stage. There's a concern that we need to make sure that it's going to meet the needs of residents. So we're going to take that design and present it around to make sure that the residents are on board that this is a good idea and a good spend, and then construction will happen next year sometime.
Got it. Thanks for the update.
Sure.
Alyssa, there was a question that came up. We think we figured it out at the FOC meeting last night. Back under the transfer, it was transfer to legal. It was like 164,000. And then looking at the if you go back, I think it's the first page. That, yeah, see that 164, 613, 11. But then we looked at legal and election, and those two numbers, that's what that 164 is. You basically combine those two. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, those will wash out. So your Town Center reimbursement for legal will cover your legal and election lines, since legal does take care of that as well. And
Okay.
then district management with district management.
Okay.
All right, and then the only other item, in early July, we did get approval for $150,000 to be transferred to Town Center for approved capital projects. I do forget the project off the top of my head, but I'm sure Bruce or Bill knows. So as of July, we have transferred $150,000. These were approved.
That goes back to the that 297 plus capital number, and we approved it so long as Town Center gave us a list of capital projects that they were going to use the money for. Remember, this was that whole thing where these projects were apparently done, on handshake deals with no real documentation. And we went back and forth from back in 2020 or 2021 with no good background. We finally approved the transfer, but we said, we're not going to do it until you give us an actual list of projects you're going to use that money for this year. And the first $150,000 was for the big well number 7 refurbishment or redrilling or whatever on the golf course, just down from the beaches on Fairway Villas 1 or Subdistrict 1 side or part of the area of the district. So that was what that 150 was.
All right, thanks. All right, otherwise, I don't really have much to point out for the board unless they had any specific questions or items that they wanted me to go into more detail for.
Nope. All good.
All right, then I think our next item is just going to be your claims and your payables. So these are going to be your invoices processed and paid since the last list. So mainly it's just gonna be your management, your legal and accounting costs. We do have some director's fees in there from your last special meeting. I think the only outliers really to point out, as you guys know, the city and county of Denver, this was for the recall election. And then we did also pay Whipfly, that is your auditors. So that was to complete your 2023 audit. And then, so we have paid for all of our services through July. And so far we've received one August invoice for your management down here. This is going to be your payables. So not paid yet. This is going to be coming up.
Question, Alyssa, did the 2023 audit get filed before the July 31st cutoff?
Yes, it did.
Thank you.
All
If
right.
there's no other questions, just need a motion and a second to approve, please.
I
I,
motion. Go ahead.
go ahead,
Bruce.
Louis.
I move to approve the presented financial
And the payments,
and the payments. I'm sorry. Yes.
second?
Is there anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Alyssa and board members, just want to let you know, we received an invoice from the city and county of Denver back on June 15th for an annual review and monitoring fee. If you recall, last year we caught up for 3 previous years that had not been paid. They invoiced again for $3,000. I've left at least 10 voicemail messages. I've talked to several people at the finance office, sent numerous emails, and we're trying to get an invoice that shows that those previous payments were made and received, and then issue a new invoice. And it's like talking to the wall. So there's still a pending invoice for $3,000 out there. We'll continue to work on that, but we're promoting it. Don't approve payment for that until we get a revised invoice.
Very good.
And I assume Alyssa knows all about that, is helping you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I provided the proof of payment. So it really just sounds like, yeah, just getting that revised invoice. Not sure what the problem is. So.
Okay.
It's a big
Maybe-
deal. There's a lot of
Maybe
people.
we gotta talk to Stacy Gilmore.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa.
So next on the agenda is a covenant control and restriction status report. We did receive a report late today or early today, I'm sorry, and I can share my screen again with you. We had asked for a revised or a more simple report, and we did receive that. And that is the report that we got. So as you can see, there's several outstanding CCR violations that are in work. I don't have any detail on any of those specifically. If
Yeah,
you,
so we don't know if any of those are first letters or heading to enforcement with the attorneys or anything, correct?
yes, sir, exactly. If you'd like additional information, I can request that from April and.
No,
and
at this point, that's something that we'll work with the new district manager about
Okay,
having a better, I mean, it doesn't really tell us much.
it doesn't.
Right,
It's,
true.
Well, it is interesting to look at it, and it shows the top 3 items are trash, lawn maintenance, and weeds, or excuse me, trash, property maintenance, and weeds.
Right.
Weeds is the highest, 588.
Yeah, so can you ask her, can you write her a letter and just ask her if there's been any movement on this, or they just send out letters? We should be able to have something, not necessarily did it go to the lawyer, but it should be what has been done about all these.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that would help us a little bit where the direction is. Did she count these up herself? Did other neighbors send in the complaint? You know, and so by that, we should know, okay, she's seen them, the letter's been sent. and things like that to keep a better perspective on it. At least we have some numbers.
Yes, ma'am. I'll ask for more detail and I'll provide that for the board as soon as I receive it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is the district work order status report. Sorry about that. And again, I don't have much detail on this. Brittany wasn't able to join us tonight. She's up in Keystone for the conference. But she did provide this report for you. As you can see, a majority of those are the landscaping and grounds projects.
And that just says the, and work request by type, but it doesn't say whether they're done or what stage of.
No, sir, there's no status, and I will ask for a more detailed report or status for that, and I'll supply that to you as soon as I receive that as well.
Okay,
That would be
thanks.
helpful. Yeah.
Certainly.
Sorry to interject. Are these like through the first of the year or for the last month? That would be helpful to know too.
Good point. Thanks,
Yep.
Cal.
Okay. Next is statutory compliance, the special district calendar status. Everything the district is in compliance right now with everything. As Alyssa stated earlier, the audit was filed prior to the deadline of July 31st. The next deadline for staff or for consultants is to get you a draft budget by October 10th. Preliminary budget or preliminary assessed values have been received. And I know that Alyssa and her folks are working on a draft budget to get to you all by that deadline or prior to that deadline so we can start working on that.
That deadline's October 15th, right?
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I'm sure we're gonna have many, I'm sure we're gonna have many budget workshops, but the statutory deadline, October
Right.
15th.
And that's all for that section. Next, we move on to other business, and there has been a request for an executive session.
right.
And so at that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. And Bruce, did you want me to put that up for the wording for you?
I see it right there. I have the agenda up.
Okay,
I move we go into executive session for purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning the transition of tax revenue and budgeting control from Town Center Metro District to Ebert Metro District, the acquisition of property and determining positions subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators concerning said transition per section 26-6-402, paren 4, close paren A, close paren, comma, paren B, close paren, comma, and paren E, close paren, capital I, capital Roman numeral 1, close paren, CRS, or Colorado Revised Statutes.
is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone opposed into executive session? Thank you. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
Cold water. Okay.
All right, in light of, we've had a discussion in executive session. It was primarily about transition issues related to the motion that took us into executive session. With regard to items 16 and 17 that were on the agenda, and in light of, we just today received potential edits to the consolidation intergovernmental agreement from Town Centers Council, in addition to further information provided by our council, we've decided to defer consideration of both of those 16 and 17 items until a special meeting to be held sometime in October at a date to be determined. Also, in the meantime, we're going to be publishing a notice and sending out an email notice of board vacancy with 21 days to get interested folks to provide their interest to myself and or Kurt. And hopefully at that special meeting, we can also, we'll make a decision on a replacement or filling that board vacancy. So we do not have another motion to make at this time, other than potential adjournment motion.
I have one question. Is that, is the application on the website, Kurt?
Not yet, ma'am, but we will put it up tomorrow.
Okay, just so they
Thank
know. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
Kurt, I'll send you the notice of board vacancy. I gotta make one tweak to it that Evan had sent to me.
Very good. I'll look for that tomorrow. Any other matters for the board? If there are none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, we have, oh, she was waving. Okay. Just need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Outstanding. Well,
Good night, everybody.
we'll stand
Night.
adjourned at 8:53. Thank you all.
Thank you all.